On September 30th, 2026, the state of Tennessee plans to do something it hasn't done in over 200 years. Execute a woman.
The only woman on Tennessee's death row is asking the courts to reconsider her death sentence. Christa Pike was convicted in 1996. She and 2 other people tortured and killed 19-year-old Colleen Slemmer.
Her name is Christa Pike. She was 18 years old when she killed a girl named Colleen Slemmer with a rock, a piece of asphalt, and a boning knife. She kept a piece of her victim's skull as a souvenir. She was also, prosecutors would later admit, one of the most severely abused children anyone in that courtroom had ever heard of. 2 people know exactly what happened in those woods in 1995. One of them is dead. The other has spent 30 years trying to explain herself to a state that has already decided not to listen. If stories like this, the ones true crime forgets to ask hard questions about, are why you're here, hit subscribe now. This one doesn't end the way you think. Christa Gale Pike was born prematurely on March 10, 1976, in Beckley, West Virginia, to Carissa Hansen and Emil Pike. It was not a stable beginning. Her parents married, divorced after infidelity, and remarried, a cycle of rupture and reconciliation that would define much of Christa's early life. According to court records later filed by her defense team, records the original jury never fully heard, Christa's childhood included documented physical abuse, sexual abuse, and profound neglect. Investigators and psychologists who later reviewed her case described a pattern seen again and again in death penalty cases. A child who was failed by every system meant to protect her, long before she became someone the state would decide to punish. This is not an excuse offered by this video. It's a fact offered by the court record. What you do with it is yours to decide. By 1994, 18-year-old Christa had enrolled in the Job Corps program in Knoxville, Tennessee, a federal initiative designed to give young people from difficult backgrounds a second chance at education and stable work. It was there she met Colleen Slemmer. Colleen was 19. She was, by every account, trying to build a life for herself the same way Christa was. Neither of them could have known that within months, one of them would be dead, and the other would spend the rest of her life on death row. But to understand what happened in the woods behind that Job Corps campus, you have to understand a love triangle, and a jealousy that prosecutors say turned homicidal within a matter of days. According to trial testimony, Christa had become involved with a young man named Tadrell Shipp, a fellow Job Corps student. Prosecutors alleged that Christa believed Colleen Slemmer was a romantic rival, and that on the night of January 12, 1995, Christa lured Colleen into the woods under the pretense of buying marijuana. What followed, according to court records, lasted for hours. Trial testimony described a sustained and brutal attack. Colleen was struck repeatedly, tortured over an extended period, and ultimately killed. Christa was later found to have kept a piece of her victim's skull when Colleen's body was discovered days later by hikers. Investigators said it was one of the most disturbing crime scenes in Knoxville's history. Christa was 18. Her co-defendant, Tadrell Shipp, was 17. A third student, Shadola Peterson, was also implicated in luring Colleen to the scene. Within days, all 3 were arrested. The case made national headlines not just because of the brutality, but because of who had committed it: teenagers, in a program built specifically to give them a better future. But here's where the story splits into 2 very different outcomes, because the courtroom would treat these 3 teenagers in wildly different ways. And one of those decisions is at the center of the legal battle happening right now, in 2026. In 1996, Christa Pike was convicted of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to death, becoming, at the time, one of the youngest women on death row in the United States for a crime committed at 18. Tadrell Shipp, who was 17 at the time of the killing, received a life sentence. He remains incarcerated today and was denied parole as recently as October 2025. The disparity, one teenager facing execution, another serving life for the same crime, has become one of the defining criticisms of Christa's case. Her defense team has since argued that this disparity wasn't just about age. It was about representation. According to post-conviction filings, Christa's original trial lawyers were inexperienced in capital cases. On the eve of sentencing, they reportedly abandoned their plan to call a psychologist who had spent months compiling a 3-volume history of Christa's childhood abuse. That evidence, the evidence that might have explained who Christa Pike was before she became a name in a Tennessee courtroom, was never presented to the jury deciding whether she would live or die. This raises the question that has followed her case for 30 years. Would 12 jurors have made a different decision if they'd heard the whole story? We'll never know. And under the law, it may no longer matter. For the next 25 years, Christa Pike would live in near total isolation, and what happened to her mind in that time is now, itself, part of the legal fight to stop her execution. For over 2 decades, Christa Pike was held in solitary confinement, a form of incarceration that mental health experts have long warned can cause severe psychological deterioration, even in people who entered it stable. Her legal team has since stated that she suffers from serious mental illness, a claim now part of the ongoing litigation over how and whether her execution should proceed. In 2001 and again in 2002, against her own attorney's advice, Christa asked the courts to drop her appeals entirely and let her be executed by electrocution. A date was set. Then, just weeks before it was scheduled, she changed her mind. Her lawyers filed to continue the appeal. An appellate panel agreed, and the execution never happened. It's worth sitting with that for a second. A woman who once asked to die is now, 3 decades later, fighting to live, or at least, fighting for the right to choose how her life ends, and on what terms. That fight is what's happening in Tennessee courtrooms right now. In late 2025, the Tennessee Supreme Court set Christa's execution date for September 30th, 2026. If it proceeds, she will be the first woman executed in Tennessee in more than 200 years, and the only person executed in the state's modern history for a crime committed at 18, 19, or 20 years old. But even now, with a date on the calendar, nothing about this case is settled. Because Christa Pike's lawyers aren't just fighting to stop the execution, they're fighting over how it happens, if it happens at all. And what one witness described in court last week should disturb anyone, regardless of where they stand on the death penalty. Christa's legal team has raised several challenges to how Tennessee plans to carry out her execution. First, a religious liberty claim. Christa practices Buddhism, and her lawyers argue that the state's execution protocol restricts access to her Buddhist spiritual advisor, including a blackout period in her final 12 hours that would cut off communication entirely. Her attorneys say this violates her First Amendment right to religious practice in her final hours of life. Second, and this is where the case takes a genuinely unsettling turn, her lawyers have pointed to a recent execution in Tennessee that did not go smoothly. In testimony before a special master reviewing Christa's case, an attorney who witnessed a separate execution in May 2026 described what she called a chaotic scene, an execution team struggling for over 30 minutes to find a usable vein, with the condemned man stuck more than a dozen times, in his arms, his hands, even his feet. Christa's medical history reportedly includes complications that could make finding a vein for lethal injection extremely difficult. Her legal team argues this makes her execution, by that method, a serious risk of exactly the kind of prolonged, painful death the Constitution is supposed to prohibit. Because of this, her lawyers have taken the unusual step of requesting an alternative method, hanging. Under Tennessee law, this is a legally complex request, and as of this recording, no court has ruled on whether it will be granted. A senior judge, acting as special master, heard days of testimony on these questions in August 2026. His findings were due to the Tennessee Supreme Court shortly after, and it will ultimately be the state's highest court that decides whether Christa's execution proceeds as scheduled, is delayed, or is altered in how it's carried out. So where does that leave us? With less than 2 months until the date on the calendar, here's what we actually know, and, more importantly, what we still don't. As of this video, Christa Pike is 50 years old. She has spent more time on death row than she ever spent free. Whatever she was at 18, however you judge that, she is, by any measure, not that person anymore. The question the state of Tennessee has to answer isn't whether she committed the crime. A jury already decided that in 1996. The question is whether the same court system that never let her jury hear the full truth of her childhood should now be the one deciding whether she lives or dies. And whether a woman with documented severe mental illness, held in isolation for over 2 decades, can be executed in a way the Constitution would recognize as humane, or whether that's even possible for anyone, under any circumstances. By the time you're watching this, one of 2 things has already happened. Either the state of Tennessee carried out this execution, the first of a woman here in 200 years, or a court somewhere intervened. And Christa Pike is still exactly where she's been for 30 years, waiting. We're not going to tell you which one happened, or which one should have. That's not really what this story was about. It was about a 15-year-old girl who was raped. A 20-year-old college student who was tortured to death in the woods behind a job training campus that was supposed to give both of them a future. A jury that made a decision without hearing the whole story. And a legal system that, 30 years later, is still arguing over the mechanics of how or not whether the state should be allowed to kill. Somewhere in Tennessee tonight, there's an empty room being prepared, just in case. And somewhere else, there's a woman who has spent half her life trying to explain who she was before any of this happened, to a system that decided a long time ago it had already heard enough. What would you have needed to hear before deciding someone should die?